Many college football coaches probably don't like Dan Lanning and Marcus Freeman very much. Why? Because they recruit well, and now those other coaches have got to do a lot more work.
Locked On presents The Portal, the daily podcast covering college football recruiting and everything NIL. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Back into the Portal Podcast, where you get your daily recruiting, NIL, and transfer portal scoop. I'm your host, Brian Smith, longtime college football recruiting analyst. Thank you for making the Locked On Podcast Network your favorite place to get all your stuff. We are the number one network on the planet, and the Portal Podcast is happy to be a part of it. Today's show is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Again, $20 off your first purchase with Game Time. Just download the app today. We're going to get to the transfer portal dilemma. We're just now really easing into it. I thought it'd be a little faster, but the players are starting to hit the portal, and next week it'll go crazy after conference championship weekend. But why is there so much poaching, if you will? Why are so many players obviously leaving when they're being induced and the NCAA doesn't do anything about it? I'm going to explain the dilemma that the NCAA really has. And it's one that people aren't going to like, but guess what word it has to do with? Money. That is absolutely the reason. But we're going to start off with four coaches that I think lead their programs the appropriate way, have proven it, and it's why those same four programs are the lead programs in college football across the board. Oregon, Notre Dame, Georgia, and Ohio State. What do they all have in common? Elite head coaches, not just on the field, but they love recruiting. Not like, they love recruiting. They get after it. They make it happen. And without that, it just doesn't end up with the same result. Kirby's talked about that many times. But the two guys in particular that have really changed it are Marcus Freeman at Notre Dame and Dan Lanning at Oregon. Why those two? Well, Ohio State and Georgia are as easy as it gets to recruit. Big base in your states to recruit from, big state school, the state school. Pretty easy. They both recruit nationally, but they could be top 10 programs without going out and going everywhere. However, Notre Dame doesn't recruit that way. Indiana's not that situation. Academically, they have to go a lot of different places. And then with Oregon and Dan Lanning, the location is terrible. There aren't many prospects there. And even though they're next to California, it's Northern California. It's not near as good as LA. They have to recruit nationally. And they've done it in a way that no program has ever done it. Hard work, though. Marcus Freeman at Notre Dame and Dan Lanning at Oregon, because they are directly involved 365 with recruiting. Let me be very clear. And if you take nothing else from this podcast, this is what you should know. The majority of college football head coaches do not like recruiting. They don't want to be on the phone with 17-year-olds or younger. They don't want to be texting with them. They don't want to be messaging with them. They don't want to deal with all the shenanigans that kids love. They're adults. But if you don't do that, your roster won't be as good. And to that end, both Dan Lanning at Oregon and Marcus Freeman at Notre Dame have made it a lot harder on many coaches. Not just the ones that have been around a while, but look at it this way. They're going into your backyard and taking players. So what about the coaches that were just hired? Lane Kiffin at LSU, he's a good recruiter, but he used the portal a lot at Ole Miss. Let's see how his first full class at LSU goes outside the Louisiana borders. He needs to be on the trail really working. You could also look at Alex Golish at Auburn. He just came over from USF. He's got an advantage. Auburn's an easy place to recruit to. It's in Alabama, and he was just in Florida. He's going to be expected to hit the ground running and go after elite recruits, not just finding the diamonds in the rough like he had to at USF. And you can use the same process with Virginia Tech at James Franklin. He's expected to. He's an elite recruiter. He understands finding guys that are not only good, but that will stick at his program. That was probably the best thing he did at Penn State. What about John Summerall? Never been a P4 coach before as the head man. Now he is at Florida. Oh, yeah, they're definitely going to expect elite recruiting results. Can John Summerall do that? And on and on and on. Everybody, even Eric Morris coming over from North Texas to go into Oklahoma State, they've got to completely restock that cover. Guys like Marcus Freeman and Dan Lanning, they put a little extra pressure on everybody because they're so involved and they impact the final decision for recruits as much, if not more, than any other coaches in the country. And again, they have strategic disadvantages at their programs. Notre Dame, it's academics. Oregon, it's location. To some degree, Notre Dame location too, but they've got more players around them than what Oregon does because they've got Detroit, Cleveland, Indianapolis, Chicago. But at the same time, they both recruit nationally, and those coaches do a tremendous job of not only orchestrating how their assistants get after it, but all the guys that are on their staff are looking at them like, okay, this is how it's done. When I talk to recruits at a 7-on-7 event, at an Under Armour camp, or anything else, the names that come up are very consistent. Kirby, Marcus, Ryan Day. It's not hard. And then, of course, Dan Lanning at Oregon as well. These are the 4 best programs, not just because they can coach, but they get involved with recruiting directly. Those are the 4 best. Ohio State, Notre Dame, Georgia, Oregon, pick whatever order you want. Over the next 5 years, I will be surprised if those aren't the 4 most dominant programs as long as those head coaches are there. They've got the right guys in charge to get the best roster. Your roster is the most important thing. So with that, here are a couple of questions that I have for people out there. And it doesn't matter what school you root for, what school you hate, what conference you're involved with. But in whatever state you're in or area you're in, think about the coaches within, say, a 500-mile radius of where you're at. How many of them do you think really get enthralled with recruiting, the NIL and all of that? Because if they're not involved consistently, they're missing something. There are a lot of coaches that are good at it. Don't get me wrong. But I'm talking about the top of the board. You don't have to be the nadir at the very bottom. You have to be somebody that's at least middle of the road to have a chance and then be at the right school. Like, again, Kiffin at LSU, that's low-hanging fruit. That's arguably the easiest job for in-state recruiting there is in the country. But if he doesn't go out of state, if he doesn't do all the little things with high school recruiting, not the portal, LSU will not remotely achieve what their goals are, not even sniff it. There is no shortcut for high school recruiting at an elite level, especially with linemen. But to that end, I think Kiffin will figure that out pretty quickly, and he may have already. It's a different deal at Ole Miss. So now, how does he stack up against guys like Kirby, guys like Marcus? That's going to be a hilarious scenario because there's going to be people that bag on him no matter what he does. If they have a top 5 class, there'll be some LSU fans still not satisfied. That fan base is crazy. But I think LSU will adjust pretty quickly. If they don't have a top 10 class next year, I would be floored. And I'm sure that he's well aware of the expectations. But again, we can use the barometer anywhere you want to go. So who are some of the guys that I think could be the next to kind of join that big 4? Debatable. Kiffin could be one. Sarkisian at Texas, but the way they've recruited and retained has been a little weird. Their offensive line, they got hit. The one guy turning pro last year, that really cost them. Their left tackle. They're on that edge, but they got to take that next step next year. Their rival, they just beat, Mike Elko and Texas A&M, right on that cusp. Let's see how they do in the playoff. I know Elko can recruit, but now he's got to go take that next step and do something this year in the playoff. That's only fair. Who's next after that? It's hard to say. I don't know if there is a definitive answer. Some people might say Mario Cristobal at Miami. He can certainly recruit, but I need to see more on game day, and I need to see that program not lose to teams they have no business losing to. And then on top of that, is there anybody else? Maybe Heupel at Tennessee. I think he's a little bit underrated as a recruiter, but I haven't heard of him as a true dog on the recruiting trail. I need to see more out of that to get into that group. Anybody else? I don't think DeBoer is an A-plus recruiter. Probably not. And again, that's why I think Georgia, Ohio State, Notre Dame, and Oregon are probably going to be your best programs over the next 5 years. Texas A&M could be involved there, and so could LSU. They're all on that cusp, and again, where they're located shouldn't be that hard. So we'll see. But those are some of the guys that I think really get it done, and probably a lot of coaches don't like it because, again, from my personal experience, most head coaches really don't like recruiting that much. But the pressure is on because those guys that I talked about, Kirby, Ryan, Marcus, and Dan, they get after it. And if your program's not competing at that level, especially with those linemen, look at their lineman classes, O-line, D-line at Oregon, Notre Dame, Ohio State, etc. It's different. And that's why they have a chance every year to make the playoff and actually do something once they get there. When we come back, I'm going to talk about the big elephant in the room. Why isn't the NCAA punishing teams or doing something about all the portal tampering? That is next here on the Portal Podcast. Today's show is brought to you by Omaha Steaks. The holidays always feel a little easier when you already know the perfect gift. And Omaha Steaks makes it almost too simple, whether you're treating yourself this season or sending something memorable to family and friends. Omaha Steaks delivers handcrafted perfection right to the door. And this week is the best time to jump in because the cyber sale is here and the deals are huge. If you just want side items, they'll send them to you. If you want burgers and steaks like most people, absolutely with Omaha Steaks. And if you want a combination, sure, you can do that. And again, it doesn't have to be just gifts. You can get some for yourself. Save big on unforgettable gifts with Omaha Steaks. Visit omahasteaks.com for 50% off site-wide and an extra 20% off for select favorites during the cyber sale. And for an additional $35 off, use promo code COLLEGE at checkout. That's omahasteaks.com, promo code COLLEGE. Terms apply. See the site for details. Thank you once again for making the Portal Podcast a part of your day, each and every day right here on the Locked On Podcast Network. If you have not already, become an everydayer and subscribe. Hit that notification bell on YouTube. Make sure you get this pod wherever you go, on the gym. If you're headed out to the grocery store, it's a great way to get it. We're on Spotify, YouTube, Apple, anywhere you go to get your downloads. Now let's talk a little bit about the elephant in the room, and this is something that really irks me. But I get the problem they have. The NCAA is something that I bag on quite a bit because it's not a very good entity. I think most people would agree. However, they have absolutely failed miserably, even by their standards, with the transfer portal in terms of tampering. What do I mean by that? Which school has been in trouble for tampering? Name one. There is no shortcut here. The only way to mitigate it is to publicly embarrass and, quite frankly, take away things from a program. We know who the programs are that are mostly cheating. Everybody cheats in some capacity, but some people just do it outright. There have been coaches that have talked about it publicly. A couple of years ago, Alabama stole the kicker from Miami of Ohio. Head coach there called him out publicly on a TV show. Nothing happened to Alabama. Why is it that the NCAA won't do anything? It's pretty simple. What's the most important word in our society? Money. The advertisers in no way, shape, or form want to see, and fill in the blank with the big box school that you can imagine, being on probation and not being eligible for the playoffs. Those advertisers, whether we want to hear it or not, run college football. ESPN, CBS, everybody else. How do they make their money? Advertisers. They sell, we're going to have these programs on. If the NCAA pulls those teams away, or if they lose scholarships, if their coaches in any way, suppressed, the advertisers aren't happy. MONEY is the problem. So how do we get around this? Well, first off, you got to hire people at the NCAA that have a pair, and you know exactly what I'm talking about. Secondarily, you've got to enforce it consistently. It's the only way. It will be a bloodbath. There have to be all of the following, not parts, all of the following. Coaches getting suspended without pay. There have to be scholarship restrictions. And yes, playoff restrictions as well. Not 1 out of 3, not 2 out of 3, the whole kit and caboodle. Once that happens to a school that matters, oh yeah, it'll change things real quick. But do any individuals have the ability to say anything? I'm one of the few people that talks about it, even in the media. Like it's kind of a joke. We should probably do more in the media, myself included, to talk about it, but you don't hear very much. We hear all these stories constantly, sometimes players, sometimes coach, open-endedly, without even us asking. We'll talk about tampering. They don't even care. And I'm not remotely kidding here. Unsolicited information from both ends, players and coaches. Not one or the other, both. That's a problem. The NCAA is as toothless as it gets, and it is a money-hungry, money-grabbing, pathetic institution. If your school loses somebody this year, then you know that was tampering. There's a really good reason. The NCAA. No less, no more. It is a fact. They suck, and until somebody gets to the top of that board and drops the hammer on at least one school, and then everybody will freak out. And then all these conference commissioners are like, well, why'd you do it to our school? And then the finger pointing will start, and then within a year it'll be over. You get caught doing that and you miss the playoff and you've got a good team, yeah, they won't do it no more. Again, coach suspension, restrictions with scholarships, and 100%, you have to pull the plug on a team having the ability to go to the playoff. Do I think any of that will happen? No, because I think the NCAA sucks. To that end, I digress. Let's check out what we got in the chat today. Let's see here. Archie, what's going on? When the portal opens on Friday for the Ole Miss players because of their coach leaving, some of the key players will leave to go to LSU. How will that affect Notre Dame and the Ducks in the rankings, if any? Like the portal, like I don't know much about the portal rankings that we're just getting open, so I'm not really sure what you mean, but like everybody has an opportunity to go after some of these guys. But most kids probably know in this kind of circumstance, it doesn't have to be Ole Miss because Kiffin left. If they're familiar with a coach and a system, nobody wants to learn a new system. It sucks. They're probably going to go where that coach is. Look at Virginia Tech. Do you think there aren't going to be a handful of guys from Penn State go to Tech? Especially like fifth-year guys that got their degree this year at Penn State? Of course. They already know the systems that James Franklin runs. And it's the same thing. Tulane to Florida. USF to Auburn. So on and so forth. Eric Morris, the guy that left North Texas, bringing his quarterback up to Oak State. By all means. Do you really think that quarterback wants to learn a new system in general, let alone it's obviously very good because he's so talented in it? Of course not. So I don't think it's a Notre Dame and Oregon situation there. I think it's just wholehearted. All right, Charles Faust. Kiffin to LSU affects Bama, Georgia, and the Florida schools a lot more than Notre Dame and Oregon. The kids who choose the West Coast, or especially Notre Dame, are different. Go Irish. Yeah, I don't disagree. And again, the portal is wild. But for high school recruiting, it's more regional still than the portal. Like the portal is wild. A kid in Maryland is more likely to go to West Coast or vice versa through the portal because they just want a place to call home. They're not as picky. Kids are coming out of high school, from my experience. It's pretty straightforward. They think they can pick where they want, and they're probably more about comfort because they have more options. So I don't think that you're going to see Notre Dame or Oregon really concerned about what happens with Ole Miss and LSU because that's an area neither one of those teams recruit real hard. But everybody is going to be kind of curious to see what Kiffin does with the Ole Miss stuff because it's just interesting. Michael, I hope, I'm not sure, VKW and Russian call Tank and Bodney. Well, we'll see what happens, but Bontrell King Williams, I don't know who they're going to really go after. I've got a little list with Auburn. I'm curious if they're going to flip more than just a couple of guys from USF, et cetera. I heard a conflicting report on a recruit. I'm not going to go into specifics that I think is going to LSU now instead of Auburn this morning, but I need to see it. That's signing day. That's tomorrow. And signing day is so random. I'm not even going to go into it. But at the same time, I expect Auburn to do very well on signing day from the notes that I got today. And that doesn't even include the portal. We got to remember, these are two separate entities. We'll see what happens. But Auburn will get a few guys. I don't think Tank is going anywhere other than Oregon, though, by the way. Let's see. Will Oregon lose out because of their coaches leaving? This is a great question right here. And thank you for that, AZ Merce. It depends on relationships. Experience has told me for a very long time that relationships are the number one thing that people pick a school for. I know people don't want to hear that, but it's still true. To that end, Will Stein going to Kentucky, and I don't know who's taken with him or how many other coaches are leaving, but Dan's at a point he's going to lose some good coaches. He's done a great job there at Oregon. So it's a compliment, but there could be one or two. But you're Oregon too, so I'm not as worried about it because they can go get somebody in the portal. Dan's done as good a job just about anybody in mixing high school and the portal really, really well. Chip Kelly hated recruiting. Yes, he did. It's why he is in the NFL and just got fired. You have to accept it. Like older guys probably aren't going to deal with the NIL very well. All right. Shane O'Shea. Great show, Brian. How would you rate the top 10 jobs in college football? Depends on your perspective, what you mean. There's two different ways to look at that. Number one, just where, if everything is right, where can you invest? And then there's the fit. This is the part nobody else wants to talk about either. When coaches leave, it's often based on the following question. That's awkward, but I'm just going to say it out loud. Is the wife going to be okay with you going to and fill in the blank? I know some specific coaches that have literally said no to certain jobs or coaches would have changed over the last 20, like big jobs. The wife said no. I'm not going to get specific because literally fans are, there are enough of them that are idiots that would literally contact those coaches and yell at them and say stupid things. But that's how it works. So fit for the family. How old is your daughter, your kid, et cetera? Do you want to move them if they're in high school? That kind of stuff matters too. So as far as fit and just easy going, like a school like Tennessee can fit just about anybody. It's got a decent city size. It's got pretty moderate weather. You're in a major conference. So that's an easy job to put possibly in the top 10 if you want. But the main jobs to me, like the top 5 jobs in college football that you're probably going to win the best at, if everything is right, Ohio State, Georgia, LSU, Bama, maybe Florida or Texas, like those right there. A&M would be in that mix. Notre Dame, Southern Cal, Oregon. It's not a rocket science adventure. Penn State would be on that verge of top 10. Miami can be when they have the exact right chemistry, but that's a program that's got a low floor, high ceiling. SC is kind of that way. The big city schools can be a little different because some kids don't want to go to that and their parents don't want them there, but some do. It's a little harder. But Tennessee, again, is another possibility. Auburn's just outside the top 10. Michigan, I would put borderline top 10. That state doesn't have the same population that it used to, but they've got great NIL. So that question in another 2 years is probably going to be an easier one to answer because we're going to see the leveling out of NIL. Like everybody's adjusting right now. In about 2 more years, it's going to be what it is. There isn't going to be an occasional school like BYU that's got a lot of booster money. Somebody might drop in some, but are they going to be consistent with that compared to like Ohio State or Notre Dame or USC? I doubt it. Texas, Texas A&M, even Texas Tech. That's not a great job because without the NIL money, they're not going to get the high school kids. It's in a terrible location for recruiting. But at the same time, it's still in Texas. It's just the panhandle. I'm curious to see who else jumps into that boat. But again, Ohio State, Georgia, LSU, Florida, Texas, those are about as good as it gets. After that, there's about 6 to 8 more schools you could finish out the top 10, and I have no problem with it. But it's the big box, Big Ten, SEC schools in general, maybe Notre Dame or SC or Oregon. Those jobs, you get the support that you need. AZ Merce, but does LSU have a lot of NIL? This is a great question. I don't know the full answer to this because I don't think they had as much under Kelly as some people think. It was for specific players like Bryce before he flipped from LSU to Michigan, et cetera. I get the feeling that they believe in Kiffin more and there'll be more, but I don't have any way to back that up. And that state is broke in general, but it's a state that doesn't have a lot of middle class, and the high-end people that are LSU people will donate. So it's going to depend on how well they keep their donors happy, and this is the key. It's not how much money do they have, it's how much will the donors give, because Kiffin probably isn't going to I can just tell you this straight up because I went to grad school at LSU for a little while. I've lived in that state. The donors and the boosters, they're going to want a lot of access. I think that's going to grind on most coaches, Kiffin included. Let's see how that goes in a couple of years. Ryan Weichel, Notre Dame class number 2 on 3 rivals. Notre Dame's class is elite because it's so balanced. And here, again, I've talked about this numerous times on the Portal podcast, and thank you for the comment. They recruit linemen at an elite level. That's the bottom line. If you want to look at, like, again, Georgia, Ohio State, Notre Dame, and Oregon, those are, in my opinion, the 4 best programs in the country. I don't think it's that close because they recruit linemen. Their head coaches are involved. Linemen. They always have linemen. It's harder to develop them. It takes longer. And if you miss on any class on either offensive or defensive line, it can be a problem. Those 4 programs do a great job in that area. Luke, what truly makes a great recruiter besides just NIL and winning games? Is it mainly just personality and authenticity or pure effort and taking no days off? That is a great question. I think the authenticity is probably the thing that that's a great word to use, by the way, that I would talk about just from speaking with recruits, 7-on-7 coaches. I mean, I'm in that space all the time. I just started working with the 7-on-7 organization, and like the kids know what the lines are real quick, even the underclassmen. Even the kid that's a 3-star just trying to get his first, they know the BS. If you're not authentic, you gone. You think you can lie to mom? Good luck. These kinds of situations play themselves out really fast. And now there are enough people that know what it looks like. I was on the phone with somebody this morning that more or less threatened a coach on the phone over some crap that he tried to pull with his recruit. It's not going to work. So authenticity is number one. After that, NIL is important, but it's just the consistency in the relationship. If you're consistent in the communication with the parent, the sister, or the head coach at the school, whoever's the important individual or individuals, you've got a chance. Relationships first. NIL can be your closer, but it's not usually the driving force, although a lot of people think that it is. NIL's, it's different for every kid too. Oregon tampered with Boise. Nothing happened. Oregon's probably tampered with about every school. They've got more money than anybody. But again, it's not just them. It's almost every school cheats. It's a joke. Like the NCAA is just a joke. But what exactly are the rules? Here's what I mean by inducement with the portal from what I was talking about earlier. It's very simple. There's no way around this. It's not nice. It's just bottom line. These schools will literally directly message them. Like if you miss on a kid out of high school, a year later, let's say that school sucks, but the kid had a good year as a freshman. They'll message them or their 7-on-7 coach or the mom of that guy that's playing at your rival school and just try to induce them to get in the portal. Come here. If you get in the portal, we'll take you. Here's the offer. That's as illegal as it gets. And this is just nonstop. I've heard this story so many times, it's not funny. So it's pretty bad. I just like how Dan Lanning has taken players who have failed at several schools and bring them back to life. Look at the receiver that was at Bama. It was JUCO kid, Bama, Florida State, and now he's at Oregon. I forget the kid's name, but he's fast as all get out. He was awful at Florida State last year. He's really good for Oregon. Magoost, BRDLC. I think part of the great recruiter must be knowing how to sell and connect the unique parts of a given program school with the recruits. Easy to say as a Notre Dame fan where we have differentiators. Notre Dame is a pretty easy place. Either you're going to like Notre Dame or you're not. As somebody that's covered them, grew up around it. That's a great example. The harder one is if you're a big box state school that's not necessarily Michigan or Texas. How do you differentiate yourself if you're Iowa, if you're Illinois, if you're a school like Ole Miss trying to climb? You got to do really specific things because you haven't won big. The campus can be great. The coaches can be great. But winning matters too. That's a really good point. Let's see here. Penn State on the verge of top 10. Sure doesn't seem that way. I don't know what you're talking about from – I didn't say Penn State. Top 10, they used to have top 10 classes or borderline, but they aren't anymore. Like right now, I think Penn State has 6 commitments. They're awful in recruiting right now. Terry Howie. Will Brian Kelly pack it in now that he is getting this buyout? I think he scares schools away now that with the LSU situation. 2 things. Number one, that probably doesn't help him. Good point. And 2, Brian Kelly's screwed because his expectation for a job after having Notre Dame and LSU is going to be higher than what he's going to get. He's not going to take a mid-level job. He's not. I think it is the ability to get recruits to the NFL. That's a big part of it too. If you prove it, sometimes coaches will get recruits that they didn't necessarily want to go there, but they were in the final 2 or 3 and they thought it was the best for them. Heard that quite a few times with Bama. Benson, that's right. Thank you. Benson is the receiver out at Oregon now. AZ, how is Indiana doing it? 2 things with Indiana. Number one is his great coaching and development. Let's start with the obvious. I'm an Indiana grad, and my entire life they've sucked pretty much. But at the same time, they brought in 13 players from the former program. They were at James Madison. They come over to IU. If I remember correctly, somebody posted this in the chat, if I'm wrong, 8 of those players are still with the Hoosiers program. These are key guys like Fisher. He's the linebacker. They've got guys that came over like Surratt. That's the receiver. These are guys who are NFL players. And they also, again, they're very good coaches. They went and found guys at the FCS, G6, all these different levels that were good, that were proven. Conversely, like Florida State, like I cover them for Locked On Seminoles on this same network. Man, 24, they took a bunch of kids that were retreads from Alabama and Georgia. Only one kid really worked out of that group. One. Once you get to college, either you have the go-go juice to do the things that you're supposed to academically, socially, training, how you sleep, when you eat, and then, of course, practice and games. It's a big plate, and a lot of kids can't handle it. It's not talent. It's the maturity or lack thereof. Indiana went with the mature kids, and they're winning. However, Indiana's going to lose all those kids. Plus, they've hit not once, but 2 years in a row on a portal quarterback. I mean, they might have the number one pick in the draft in Mendoza. That's a situation that's not likely to repeat itself, and they're going to lose all those kids from James Madison. I'm curious to see how much they drop off next year, but no way Indiana's going to be as good because now they got to start recruiting high school level. They could be 7-5 next year. It's not the staff's fault. The talent's not going to be the same. Top 10 coaching destination. I mean, for coaches, it just depends on what you want. Again, the wife dictates a lot. Nobody wants to hear that, but that's true. Having stated that, some people will say LSU is the easiest job. Some will say Texas. Some will say Miami or USC. That's opinion. To me, the easiest jobs, if you're just willing to go anywhere, LSU, Georgia, and Ohio State, because the in-state base is so good. And they're the main school. Like Georgia Tech, no offense to them, they hardly ever beat UGA for a recruit. Very rare. Georgia doesn't just rule Georgia, but pretty close. And Ohio State and LSU are the only big box schools in their state where it's loaded. After that, any of the Florida schools, either the Alabama schools, Clemson, even though it's in a smaller state, it's right on the border of Georgia. They get a bunch of kids there. That's an easy job. Notre Dame can recruit nationally, but they do have the recruiting restrictions, so I wouldn't put them quite as high. Michigan is still pretty good. It's the schools you think. And then, of course, Oregon. Dan said that he's not leaving because of the support he gets. He's a Southern guy. Like, he's coached at Bama and Georgia. But now he's got it so good there, he's happy. So it's eye of the beholder what the best job is. Which of the G5 coaches that were just hired do you think has the best chance to shock everyone and be an elite recruiter immediately? Goalish. And there's two reasons for that. Number one, the offense they run at Auburn is, I assume, going to be the same one he ran at USF, Tennessee, UCF, etc. High tempo, throw it down the field, which is exciting. And they've got receivers to do it, Auburn. Malcolm Simmons, Cam Coleman, Perry Thompson. I can't imagine how much fun that's going to be. And allegedly, they're going to bring Byron Brown there. We'll see if that happens. But all those guys combined, that's one hell of a list. And then secondarily, this is a guy that has not just occasionally, but he's been a part of the recruiting coordinator world for a couple of years and been known as a recruiter. And he's got ties to all the following. He's coached in Oklahoma, Iowa. He's coached in Florida. He's coached in Tennessee, like all over the place. So he knows the JUCO ranks. He knows Texas. He knows Florida. He knows Georgia. I think that there's a really good chance that Auburn's going to have a top 10 class next year. And they got booster money at Auburn. I think that he would be the one that's the easiest. AZ, was the coaching or the playoffs, though? Was that coach? I'm not sure what you're talking about there, brother. Not sure. Jay Real, Auburn about to lose them. Lose who? I mean, they could lose some players, but everybody's going to lose some in the portal. There's no doubt. AZ, Dan Lanning would leave for Kansas City Chiefs if he wins a national title. For those who don't know, Dan is from the Kansas City area. I could see that. If you want to go to the NFL, that's possible. The LSU Kiffin Love Fest will last as long as the championships he brings to Baton Rouge. Best predictor is past performance. I may be in the minority, but Kiffin has never won a title as a head coach. I don't think it's a slam dunk, and I think it's less than 50% he'll win a title. It's really hard to win a freaking title. It is. You're not wrong with that, man. I don't hate that at all. To that end, let me throw out a few recruits that have made decisions here. Some of these are flips, some of them are not, but man, we still got a lot of stuff going on. And it's only the second. So tomorrow is signing day, by the way. I'm going to do a show a little bit differently tomorrow. I don't know if I'm going to do a noon show for those of you who are listening. Maybe a little later because most press conferences are later. I'm not sure how I'm going to do that. I might do a short one and then do another pod a little later in the day. I've got to hit the road tomorrow night, but man, it's going to be wild. Here are a few just in general that have happened in the last day. Keyshawn, and I'm probably going to butcher this name, Tabateo at a McCallie school in Chattanooga. That's a really good program. Wide receiver, 5'11", 165. He is now going to Wisconsin. You don't see kids from Tennessee headed to Wisconsin very much. That might be a kid that's from Canada originally. If I remember right, McCallie school is a boarding school. Savion Bartholomew out of Belle Chase in Louisiana, defensive lineman, 6'3", 280. It's going all the way to Washington State. That just shows you how wild recruiting is. You get kids going all over the place. Noah Abibi out of Friendswood High School, just outside of Houston, offensive tackle, 6'3", 275, staying home, playing for the Houston Cougars. Virginia gets Luke Hatfield out of Battlefield in Haymarket, Virginia. What a great name. Interior lineman, 6'4", 280, playing for the Cavaliers. Virginia Tech has hit on 3 guys. Benjamin, and again, I'm probably going to butcher this name, Azayuka out of Catholic Central in Novi, Michigan. Pretty good program, 6'3", 315. He was originally at Penn State, so that's going on. Davion Brown, a kid that was with Penn State as well, at one point is at Trinity Episcopal in Richmond, Virginia. He's also going to Virginia Tech now, again, prior at Penn State. T-Ron Richardson was committed to Oklahoma, defensive lineman out of Virginia. He's at Hopewell High School, Hopewell, Virginia, good program. Pretty highly rated kid. He's going to Virginia Tech. That program's starting to build some momentum, to say the least. And just talking about the decommits, they're all over the place. Oklahoma State's still losing some. Tulane just lost Noah Beebe, the kid I just talked about. Like Arkansas is still losing kids. Ari Slocum out of Union Parish in Farmersville, Louisiana, Northern Louisiana School, defensive lineman, just decommitted from Arkansas. There's a lot of stuff with all these coaching changes. We're going to see quite a few guys probably jump in and make a decision in one way, shape, or form or another. It is what it is, but based on their coaches leaving. That sucks, but that's just reality. The transfer portal beckons to, because of I can't name names, there are several players that I expect to hit the road that are prominent names. And like the Nick Marsh kid, for those of you who didn't see, the wide receiver from Michigan State, they changed coaches. Pat Fitzgerald, the old Northwestern coach, instead of Jonathan Smith now at Michigan State. I can't even imagine what he's going to command on the open market. You know, somebody like Oregon or Ohio State or whoever is going to try and go get him. We'll see how that goes. But there are a lot of different really good players. They're going to be in the portal pretty quick. It won't take long with that. Lastly, something right before I hit the button to go live today, Hayes Fawcett on X posted that Jared Curtis has flipped from Georgia to Vanderbilt. Anybody has any comments on that? Fire away. I've seen Jared live. His arm strength is insane. Kid out of Nashville Christian. It's a small school, so it's kind of hard to grade his film. But I've seen him up close. Great kid. Man, can he spin it. What a great recruit for that entire community, not just Vanderbilt, but he's going to stay home in Nashville, and I'm sure Georgia fans are mad. I get it. I would be too. But it's a neat story. What does Georgia do? Do they flip a quarterback tomorrow? That's going to be really wild. Lastly here, and I'm probably going to mispronounce this as well. Matter of fact, they got a nickname, so I'm just going to go with Niquavion Simmons has committed to Tennessee. 300-pound defensive lineman from Columbus, Georgia. Chose the Vols over Middle Tennessee and Mississippi State. Big kid. So good for them. Columbus, Georgia, I live pretty close to there. That area's got so many players. Lastly, thank you very much for making the Portal Podcast a part of your day. Truly appreciate it. Tomorrow, I guess, let's plan on a live show tomorrow at noon. I'll kind of get the morning news out. It'll just be kind of random. There's not going to be any specific subject. I'll also have a podcast in some capacity in the morning, kind of my thoughts on the best classes in general as it goes in. But I've got a Wisconsin podcast for the morning as well. There's going to be a lot of stuff on this show. Make sure you check it out. Indiana podcast today, Penn State podcast last night. There's a lot of different stuff I've got here on the Portal Podcast. Whether you listen on Spotify, Apple, or anywhere else, make sure you check it out. Download and subscribe today. Everybody have a good one. We'll see you again soon here on the Portal Podcast.